Start winning at the races with Daily Racing Form's new Mobile Pass performances, featuring exclusive buyer speed figures and expert analysis and selections. Go to DRF.com/best and get the power of DRF in the palm of your hand.
Hey everybody, it's Jay Privman along with Marty McGee. Thank you for joining us throughout this elongated Kentucky Derby trail. We have finally gotten to the last stop on that trail. The Kentucky Derby is on Saturday at Churchill Downs. Marty will be there. He is covering the Kentucky Derby and writing all the lead stuff for us this week. I'm home in California, missing my first Derby after covering 38 straight from 1982 through last year. Marty, before we get into the race itself, just what's it been like just sort of being on the backside this year compared to years past?
Well, I haven't been on the backside. I'm not one of the pool reporters, so right. I wouldn't know. I can tell you this, on the front side, it's just as lonely as all the pool reporters are telling me that it's been on the backside. I think yesterday in the press area, the windowless press area that Churchill provides for the media, there were two people there in the main section, me and one other pool reporter, for the first race yesterday. It was like not even like the Clark handicap or anything like that. It's been so odd to be at the track, and I've taken a couple videos of the first races both Tuesday and Wednesday. Today I'm at my house because I had other stuff to take care of before we get into the big deal on Friday and Saturday. But suffice it to say, Jay, it's been rather unusual being at the track.
Well, the race was drawn on Tuesday. We're taping this at noon Eastern time on Thursday. So if there's any developments in the field from this point forward, that's because of when we're taping this, and there's one that we're going to get to in a moment. But let's start with showing you the field in post position order. This is online also at DRF.com. Marty and I made comments on all 18 runners in the race that were entered on Tuesday, so you can see what we think of each individual horse, and it's all listed in post position order. But Marty, let's start with the horse who's been the acknowledged favorite for this race all along and is now the odds-on favorite both on your line and the line of Churchill Downs' Mike Battaglia. That is Tiz the Law, 4 for 4 this year, won the Belmont in June, won the Travers last time out. What are your expectations for him off this race, coming off the Travers and heading into the Kentucky Derby?
Well, I have a little quibble with Mike's line at 3 to 5. I don't know if he'll be quite that strong. I've got him and Honor AP a little bit closer, but I mean, come on, Jay. This is the heaviest favorite since Arazi. We haven't had an odds-on favorite win the Derby since 1979 with Spectacular Bid. Expectations clearly very heavy for the New York-bred Tiz the Law. Figures like the favorite. I mean, if you go back and watch all of his races this year, especially the Belmont and then the Travers, which he won in an absolute gallop, he's got to be the horse to beat. You would also think in his favor is the pace scenario, whereby I've talked about just a couple, maybe 2 or 3 horses who figure in front of him once they turn down the backside. And I mean, surely Manny Franco will be doing his best to get him outside of that leading pack and go from there. So if he can duplicate the run he has shown all year, I mean, you might be looking at a 340 mutual here in Kentucky Derby 146.
Well, the 3 favorites in order of your odds are all drawn in the outside 3 post positions, with Tiz the Law next to the last horse. Authentic is on the outside. The innermost of those 3, but all of them drawn wide, is Honor AP. And Marty, the way I look at this race, for me, I think there's 2 horses who can win the race, Tiz the Law or Honor AP. One is probably going to be significantly higher than the other. As you know, I've been a huge fan of Honor AP's. I think on current form, Tiz the Law is slightly ahead of him, but I have utmost respect for Honor AP, and I think he's going to fire another big race, especially now that he gets to go out to 1.25 miles after cutting back to 1 mile and a 16th last time out. We're going to take a look at his win in the Santa Anita Derby, but give me your overview of Honor AP.
Well, I mean, Jay, people here, the few people here this week have commented, gone out of their way to comment on how good he looks. So obviously John Sheriff's, he's not in the Hall of Fame, but maybe we should think about that at one point. But anyway, He's coming here in perfect shape. We talked about King Guillermo maybe coming out of the race here on Thursday afternoon, but I would think that him staying in would help Honor AP with the pace. You would think that Honor AP needs a little more pace than maybe Tiz the Law in front of him to be most effective. So if you go back to his shared belief race, I think that the small field combined with the shorter distance were not in his favor. So John Sheriff's won the Derby with a 50-1 shot. So it would certainly not be outside the realm that he wins with the horse who's going to be about 4 or 5-1.
And one thing I've seen over the years with John Sheriff's is he knows how to use prep races as prep races and have a horse ready when it matters most on game day. And I expect Honor AP to run as good as he can in the Kentucky Derby. Marty just moments ago was alluding to King Guillermo. There's a developing story, and the resolution of it will be played out after we finish taping this. But this morning, Thursday, King Guillermo did not go to the track to train. There's still no update as to his status at the moment for the Derby. But Marty, the big implication that you were just alluding to, and that I think really can potentially impact this race, is from the pace, and specifically with Authentic, who's drawn widest and is a horse that I've been skeptical can get the 1.25 miles. But I'll tell you, if King Guillermo comes out of the race, that's going to obviously help the chances of Authentic being able to maybe go a little slower than he might have had to earlier and maybe see out the 1.25 miles. What are your thoughts on Authentic?
Well, you had mentioned that if King Guillermo was in there, he kind of had to go from post 6. So that would have kind of forced the hand of Authentic, perhaps. And then you've really only got 2 other speed horses in there, Jay. You had the other Baffert horse with 1,000 Words, although he wasn't really that speedy in some of his prior races. He did show it at Del Mar. And then New York Traffic. So otherwise, it looks like maybe Authentic, with the open air outside box where the air is fresh and clean, might be able to just kind of lope down there in relatively easy fashion and make the kind of pace he wants without King Guillermo in there. Again, it was reported today, Thursday morning, that he has a little problem. Well, as his trainer, Juanavilla, even said, a little problem for a big race is not a little problem. So it just can't be good, and I can't imagine that he'll be a factor or anything in this race. Plus, he has the 4-month layoff, et cetera, that we've talked about on previous shows here.
Marty, just before we move on to a couple of long shots that you and I like for the gimmicks in here, what do you think Manny Franco is going to do away from the gate? Let's gameplay this out. Let's say, hypothetically, King Guillermo's not in the race, and Authentic looks like he might be the controlling speed in here. Tiz the Law is drawn right next to him. Do you send a little bit away from the gate to maybe make Authentic work a little bit harder to get to the top and then kind of let him go and get outside him? How would you ride the opening 1/4 mile if you were on Tiz the Law and he had to carry 60 pounds over?
You're being generous there, Jay, but anyway. You let him go. I mean, you make sure you get away clean the first 20 yards or so, but just let the guy go, and then just make sure you are keeping track of him. You don't want to let him get 4, 5, 6 lengths ahead of you. So, and I think that Tiz the Law has that tractability whereby he can do just that. So it's going to be tough for Authentic to get away from a horse like Tiz the Law, in my opinion.
Well, a race like this with a big field, 18 at the moment, maybe going down to 17. There's always going to be horses that are big prices. The gimmicks are always attractive in a race like this. You've got the trifecta and the superfecta. Marty, let's talk about a few horses that you and I think are going to be big prices and have a chance to get into the gimmicks. We'll start with a couple that you like. First off, let's start with Attachment Rate, a horse who's coming off a 2nd place finish in the Ellis Park Derby behind Art Collector, who was another of the late defections from this Kentucky Derby. Give me your thoughts on Attachment Rate and why you think he's a horse to be used in the gimmicks.
Well, first of all, Art Collector, that broke my heart on Tuesday. I was all in on him for a number of reasons. A lot of years, Jay, as you know, we're asked to make picks and you just go, I'll take him. But this year I was really in on him. So with him out, the horse who chased him home at Ellis Park is Attachment Rate. And I got to give this an asterisk, too, because Joe Talamo is married to my niece, so I've got a personal rooting interest in that. But he has improved a lot. Dale has pulled bigger upsets than this before in major races, Dale Romans. And, somebody's got to be third. I think if Art Collector had been there, the shortest trifecta by far would have been Tiz the Law, Art Collector, and Honor AP. But now with really, like you said, I agree that it's a two-horse race. But who are you going to use third? And I'm going to go with attachment rate.
Another horse that you rank highly in terms of a horse to use for the gimmicks is Max Player. Tell me what you think of him.
Well, as you often say, a little birdie told me that things have changed a little bit with this horse since he came into the Steve Asmussen barn. And it's quite obvious that Steve has really been cranking down the screws on him. He's got him about as tight as he could possibly have a racehorse. So I think the pace scenario might fit it. If Ricardo Santana, one of the most underrated jockeys in the country, gets a good inside trip, can kind of sneak along and not get in too much trouble from the two-hole, I think he could definitely be part of the gimmicks.
And I'm going to give you guys a couple of horses that I think are going to be big prices that can get into the gimmicks as well. First up is Enforceable, who's a horse I was really high on earlier this year. Liked a couple of his early races at fairgrounds. He disappointed in the Louisiana Derby. I thought he ran okay last time in the Bluegrass Stakes, but I'm hoping he can move forward off of that. One thing I know about him, he will be running at the end of the race when a lot of these might be running out of gas. He'll be a big price, and I think he can potentially clunk up to get into the bottom parts of the Tri or Super. And a horse who's going to be a giant number in here is Mr. Big News, who was an 11th hour entry into this race, but I thought had a troubled trip in the Bluegrass Stakes. He stumbled at the start. He got into some traffic down the backstretch. He got shuffled back again going to the far turn, and he still split the field, finishing 6th. I don't know if he's good enough to get into the top 4. I do know this. He didn't get his best chance last time, and he's going to be one of the biggest prices in the race. And he's another horse who I think will be running at the end of the race when some of these might be finding that last eighth of a mile a little bit beyond their capability. Well, that's our look at some of the top contenders for this race. Any other horses in here, Marty, you think are worth mentioning, either in a positive or negative light?
I was just going to say, Mr. Big News, he was actually my top pick in the Bluegrass, so I will not let him beat me in a Tri or Super at 77-1. I will sprinkle him in there on some of my tickets. But
very well.
Otherwise, I mean, I can't really. I'm looking at all these. Maybe Sole Volante. I mean, maybe he would be one to use, but otherwise, you've got the race picked 17, 16, 3, 9. I've got it 16, 17, 13, 2. So we are in tandem like a lot of other people with the top 2.
Well, we'll see how we do come Saturday, but that's our last installment for this year for this unusual 2020 Kentucky Derby season. We want to thank you for joining us all along throughout this Derby season. Marty and I will be back later today at 5 o'clock Eastern time. We're going to be doing a Twitter takeover regarding the Kentucky Derby, answering fan questions. So if you've got anything you want to ask us specifically, make sure you log in for that and watch it on Facebook and YouTube as well. Marty is on site at the Derby. He'll have complete coverage of all the goings-ons, both later today, Thursday, and obviously Friday, Saturday, and follow-up stuff on Sunday as well. Thanks again for Marty McGee. I'm Jay Privman. Enjoy the Kentucky Derby.